What's going on, guys? Thank you guys for coming out and hanging out with us. If you haven't seen this podcast before, it's my D&D podcast where I interview players and DMs alike. Just have a conversation, shoot ideas back and forth. And so that way you guys can see various play styles from other DMs and all sides of tabletop role-playing games in general. Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu. Everyone has their own style, and I feel like there should be something out there that you can showcase. But before we start, I want to give a huge thank you to one of our sponsors for the stream, Hit Point Press, and their amazing deck of many things. If you guys haven't seen this stuff on my channel, they make amazing animated decks of many things. It's a 22 card standard deck. They also carry deck of many cantrips, deck of many spells, level 1 through 5. They're working on 1 through 9. That's available on their Kickstarter. The link is in my bio, in my panel, in my Twitch. As well as they'll carry their amazing Humblewood Arc that is for 5e. If you haven't checked out Humblewood, again, click the panel down below and check it out. Also want to give a huge thank you to Misty Mountain Gaming. Misty Mountain Gaming is a veteran-owned dice company known for their high-quality dice, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. They have some of the most amazing dice sets, and including a metal 100-sided dice called the Plunder. They also have great accessories to go along with everything. Make sure to check out mistymountaingaming.com. Use the code NAT10, NAT10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. So today we have none other than Dragons. If you guys don't know who they are, where have you been? I would be very mad if you don't know who they are. They have some of the most amazing content I've seen on TikTok. I've been following the channel for so long, and I know I've sent you a message before, but I figured it would probably take a little bit to get through to you. But she is a amazing D&D content creator and a toy designer, and she has an amazing thing, the little Chibi Thulu. I love it so much. It's a dice holder, and it comes with a dice tray, correct?
Yes, it does. They come with like this little extra dice tray. I forgot to bring that in here. But, they're very cute. They hold your dice. It pops out pretty easy, but still holds it so it doesn't just like fall out on the table.
Those things are so adorable.
I love this one because of the opal in there. Just
Oh my
I had
God,
so
that's
much
so
fun
nice.
cutting up little holographic pieces. So fun.
If you guys want to stay up to date with the Chibi Thulu and everything Chibi Thulu, go to her socials, click the link in the bio. You can sign up for an email to stay notified about the progress. So the first question that I always ask, because I like to see where everyone has started, how did you get into D&D or into tabletop role-playing games in general?
Yeah, for sure. My friend just kind of like came to me and she was getting into it, and so she wanted someone to play with, and I said, yeah, sure, absolutely. And then we went to our local game store and started playing there with Adventurers League, and then our DMs stopped showing up. Just
Ah.
kind of stopped showing up, and so I said, okay, if Ronan doesn't show up in another 10 minutes, I'll DM something. And so it was like very on the fly, very absolutely out of nowhere. I think we just fought some like gnolls like in a clearing essentially, like and then I said, okay, if we'll do like another like just like mini like combat baby adventure next week, and if he still doesn't show up, I'll write a campaign. And so I
Oh,
wrote
that's
my first
awesome.
campaign.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
feel like that's like the people that I've had on before. It's always kind of the same thing. Like we played a game and then they just stopped showing up, so I had to take over. For
Yeah.
me, I started learning how to play D&D right when COVID hit. So my friends have always had a weekly game, and every Wednesday that rolled around, they would send me a text or let me know like, "Hey, we're playing D&D today. You should come by." I'd be like, "How long are the games?" Oh, like 3 hours. I'm like, "Yeah, no."
Yeah.
It's too long for me. My wife would murder me if she knew that I was playing something for more than 3 hours. But with COVID, I kind of had the time, and I started researching it a little bit. Stumbled upon Critical Role, Dimension
Yep.
20, Stream of Many Eyes, and that's kind of what drew me in. So I bought the Stranger Things starter kit, which came with like a really
Yep.
railroad sandboxy one shot, and I couldn't find anyone to play with. My wife didn't want to play with me, so I just did the best thing to do and jumped on Facebook.
Absolutely. That's how the group that I'm with got started, I believe. So like my longtime group, I've been playing with them for 3 or 4 years now.
Okay.
It's my home game. It's, like I started with them while I was still in high school, and then I'm still playing with them even though I go off to college. I just like, call in, but with COVID, everybody calls in. So
Yeah.
I've been playing with them for a long time, and I know they got together under like kind of like just like a posting online. I got in with them because I was volunteering and at the game store, and then one of the players that was in my party said like, "Hey, I have this other group. Would you want to come? You like draw and stuff. Could you like do you want to like hang out and like do some doodles for us?" And then I got adopted. So
Oh,
I'm still with them. That's the game that Petal is in. That's my pixie roguelike. I love her so much.
that's
She's so
awesome.
sweet.
So,
Yeah.
since you kind of had to run your own campaign at one point, how was your first like official campaign session?
It's rough. I feel like I can't like I feel like everybody's first session is rough.
Yeah.
I feel like saying like everything went perfect is like completely nothing goes perfect, and if anybody like starts a game and says that it is perfect, there's maybe it
Yeah.
was, but
Maybe it
it's
was.
it I had really bad control of my table. That was like definitely when I first started my
Right.
like big flaw. What I was DMing in like a very public setting, and I didn't
Okay.
quite know how to like say no because there's yes
Right.
and, which is good, and then there's just I yes everything, which is not good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was very chaotic. There was a lot of like, one of the players was very, very technically minded and was like, theoretically, this spell should be able to work like this,
Oh.
but way too overpowered. And I was like, no, no. So we ended up fixing it, and it ended up being fine. But there was a lot of like, I remember they put everybody in a boat and tried to turn it into a speedboat by using
Interesting.
like yeah, they tried to use like gust of wind, like really
Oh,
like
okay.
almost cantrip level spells to like try and
Yeah.
turn it into a speedboat, and I'm like, no, because my first campaign was set in fantasy Venice. So they had to
Oh.
navigate the canals.
Oh, that's
Um
awesome.
yeah, so my first campaign was called Mages, Magic, and Merfolk. I
Nice.
set them up in Fantasy Venice, and all of the like half of the residents were, humanoids, and then half of the residents were merfolk, so they could travel in the canals. And a lot of them would like they could make extra money by pulling around the gondolas, and it was like this very like unique, weird world. I got it by rolling dice. I made a
Nice.
list of interesting places and a list of interesting things, and then I rolled dice and ended up with Fantasy Venice,
There you
controlled by
go.
merfolk. So
Yeah.
it was very fun. It was very weird, but very fun.
Hey, weird is always fun in D&D. That's what I've
Absolutely.
been finding out. Uh, my first session was terrible. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It was bad, but I had joined a Facebook group. It's a group finding group. It has like 40,000 people
Yeah.
inside of it. So every post that I seen was player looking for a DM, player looking for a DM. So I was like, okay, I'm never gonna find anyone to play with if everyone's looking for a DM. It's like, so I'll try to DM this, and everyone was fresh and new. Nobody knew how to make a character. I didn't know how to make a character, but my starter kit has pre-made character sheets. So I was like, hey, pick one of these, and they at the end of it they told me that it was awesome, they want to play again. In my head I'm like, that was the worst thing ever because
Yes.
I wasn't setting up scenes, I wasn't describing the environment, I was terrible at describing attacks, and it was just bad. Like looking back at it now and the way that I DM now, I'm just like, wow, it was really
Yeah.
bad because it's like embedded in my brain how bad it was. So if I ever at the end of the session I'm like, man, that wasn't that good, I can look back on it. I can look back on it and be like, well, it was better than that one.
Absolutely. There was a really good interview with Brendan Lee Mulligan, and I can't find like the link to it. I've tried to like pull back up this interview like, and I cannot find it anywhere, but it stuck with me so much because he said when he first started playing is he got a whole bunch of his friends together. They started in the basement. They all had like no experience, like the classic like D&D thing. And he
Yeah.
said that was the worst thing I've ever done. I hated every minute of it. I can't wait for them to come back next week.
Yeah.
And that is such like a relatable thing that you can't convey to people who don't play. Like
Yeah.
is that it is hard, but it's so fun. And like even if it's kind of a disaster, it's still like something you want to come back to because it's
Yeah.
a fun disaster.
Right? Like, even if you're playing to get foiled and they go in the complete opposite direction that you wanted him to, as a DM, you're like, wow, that was horrible, but I can't wait to see what they do next week.
Yeah. There's definitely been some times where that has been a huge issue. Like I'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, they would never do this." No, they will.
They will.
Never say never. They will.
They will. So, I know you kind of touched a little bit on rolling on the tables to kind of find your setting. So, do you prefer homebrew versus module?
I only run homebrew.
Okay.
So absolutely homebrew. I've tried to run a module twice. Well, one was the Wendy's module, so that doesn't really count. I tried to run the Wendy's when that came out. Um, the weird like semi D&D Wendy's thing.
Yeah.
I tried to run that Feast of Legends. It went terrible. That was awful. I also tried to run one of those like free RPG day
Oh,
booklets
okay. Yeah.
because I had one and like I didn't have a campaign prepared and my friends were like, "Hey, can you teach us how to play D&D? We've got a couple like we don't want to leave yet, but we also want to still like do something."
Right.
So, yeah, it I can't run modules.
Yeah.
I do so much better with homebrew, and with homebrew I can add like my own flavor to it and really like get crazy expansive, and it just feels like much better for my play style to like homebrew everything.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, I tried running Dragon of Icespire Peak for my in-person friends. So when COVID hit, I told them I wanted to get one session under my belt. So like I kind of knew how to play before I jumped into the Gasol campaign that they had. So it's like, okay, I need to know how to play before I take on managing two classes at the same time at the same exact level. So it's like, okay, I'll play a game. And before I jumped into their Gasol campaign, I was like, well, I'll take a, I'll DM a few times because they always DM, and DMs will always say that they don't want to play, but they want to play. They
Yeah.
want to play. So I was like, yeah, I'll DM Dragon of Icespire Peak. It seems really simple. No, it's not. I mean, at least for me, it wasn't because, they're veteran players playing a module that's supposed to be really sandboxy and completely railroad all the way through. So when they want to go to this magic shop and spend an hour there and then completely go in the opposite direction, the module itself is meant to just go from A to B. So if they want to go
Yeah.
to Z, you have to come up with something for it to make sense. So,
Yeah. And some people can get really like I've seen some people run modules like fantastically. They put like a little bit of their own
mhm,
flavor to it, but still like run their module. One of my friends, Stevie, is fantastic at running modules. He does both homebrew and modules, but the way he adds flavor into his modules is just like perfect. Um, so I don't think running modules is bad. I think it just like is whatever playstyle you vibe
yeah,
with more. I definitely vibe more with homebrew. I come up with some of like Fantasy Venice. Like, let's put a
yeah.
D&D game in Venice. I did Fantasy Bachelor as well,
Oh, that's awesome.
because because one of my players needed a new patron,
Oh,
and he broke his ties with his patron, and I did let that ride for like a couple sessions. So just like almost no magic with this little baby. It was hilarious. But
nice.
then they had a link with the Fairy Queen Titania, and so she knew about this and she's like, you know what? I'm having like the big midsummer ball anyway. There's going to be a lot of powerful people there. Why don't you come smooth one of them into being your patron and we'll see how it goes. And so I like lined up all these patrons. Like they basically had little
That's
pitches for the
amazing.
characters. It was so fun. That's like one of the best sessions I think I've run. It was hilarious.
That's awesome. But I mean, like I feel like Homebrew is just so much easier to run and so much more fun
Yeah.
because you get to put your twist on literally whatever you want. So when my players were going the opposite direction of Dragon of Icefire Peak, I was like, okay, well now you guys are going in the opposite direction, and you guys are going to meet the big bad from Icewind Dale because I want to do Icewind Dale eventually, and I found a way to tie both of them together. So
Yeah.
after they met the big bad, who had the deck of many things, they pulled a few cards, they stole it, they stole the deck from her, and it's been causing mayhem in my campaign ever since. But ever since that point, I've been completely homebrewing everything. And
But you get to use those cool cards that you have, so
yes,
it works.
and we'll talk about that a little bit later because I have some stories on these cards. But I've been homebrewing everything, and I'm mad that I didn't do the table setup before because I wish I would have
Mhm.
done it because now I do it. So like I have set tables for set things to trigger and happen, and
Mhm.
that's super easier when you're trying to think of something on the fly. You can just roll dice and build suspense for your players because they don't know what you're doing. I love building suspense. That's like one of my favorite things in homebrewed. So, speaking about favorite things, what is your favorite homebrew item that you made?
Hmm. Oh God, that's a hard one. With my
Yeah, it's a really
Patreon,
hard question.
yeah, with my Patreon, I release new like homebrew cards every month, and so that's a lot of what I do on there. I do both shops and then items, and the shops come with NPCs to staff it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's a really fun time. Honestly, I think my favorite thing is like the fantasy drinks that I come up with. I have this
Oh, okay.
table of Feywild drinks, and it's not that they're not like the most impressive things that I've ever made, but I
Right.
do like come back to them. Like I made it while I was still in high school, just like kind of because I wasn't even like it wasn't relevant to the game. I just thought it would be fun to make some fantasy drinks, and like every time like my players ask for it, they're like, "Well, are there any Fey drinks in this bar?" And I'm like, yeah, sure. They have Bumble. Like it's like a yellowy drink that has like these like little like jelly globs in it, kind of like boba.
Oh, okay.
And it's called Bumble because it looks like bees, and you roll a d4, and the different options I believe are you hear like a buzzing nonstop for like d4 hours,
That's
a
awesome.
swarm of d100 harmless bees follows you for the next day. You can fly for the next 2 minutes or something like that. And then I think the other one is that you like all of your spells are yellow or something like that. But it's just the fantasy drinks are so funny. I love anything that like sets off a random table.
Ah,
I
gotcha.
I really love wild magic and just playing with like it's fun for the players because they don't know what's gonna happen, and it's fun for me because it introduces like, well, now this player's invisible for the next hour. What are we gonna do with it? Like, if that wasn't in my plan, that wasn't in their plan. Okay,
Oh
gotta
man,
keep going with that.
that's awesome. I mean, I make a lot of homebrewed weapons. Like I think it's too many, but I just started dabbling with feats. So what I made is all of my players like we're big anime buffs. So I
Yes.
I take uh I take a lot of inspiration from anime and Marvel and DC.
Hmm.
So my players watch Jujutsu Kaisen. We all watched it at the same time. And if you haven't seen Jujutsu Kaisen, there is a character by the name of Toto, and he has the ability to swap places with either his friend or his enemy by clapping his hands. So when I seen that, I was like, man, that'll be really cool if that was in D&D. So I spent the whole day on it because I wanted to make it balanced, but I wanted to make it a failsafe. And
Yeah.
my one of my players had it for I want to say about a week and a half. We went through 2 sessions, never used it. And I was like, oh, they probably forgot he had it because they always forget the stuff that I give them
Yeah.
all the time. But no, he didn't forget. He waited until he had pulled the throne card in the deck of many things. So what that card does, it doubles your proficiency in the I think it's perception or persuasion skill, but you get a deed for a keep. but it's being completely overrun by monsters. So until you kill the monsters, the keep is going to be overrun. Once you kill them all, the keep is yours. So they went to the keep. There is this giant minotaur skeleton giant that it's there tearing everything apart. And every time he was about to get hit, he used the swap mechanic. And I'm just like, you ass. It's so good. Why did I make this? Uh,
Yeah, I've definitely shot myself in the foot a couple times with giving just like absolutely overpowered items or things that I didn't think far enough ahead or I assumed they would
yes.
forget. So I do a lot of long game stuff.
Mm.
In my game that I run that I've been running for quite a while, it's called Dragonless.
Ooh,
I,
okay.
I give them things. The concept of Dragonless is that all of the dragons have been hunted off, kind of like Dragonheart, where like dragon hunting becomes like a profession and like a sport.
Gotcha.
Um, so that's the concept of Dragonless is we're playing Dungeons and Dragons without the dragons, basically.
Yeah.
But there are still some, they're just hard to find. So
Okay.
sometimes they're about to like run into something that I introduced in like session one.
Oh, okay.
Like long game stuff. And then they hold on to items that I give them for a very long time and bring them up at like the least opportune times. But
And
it's great.
but about the swap mechanics. So what it is, because I feel like I need to put. I know I made a video on this on TikTok. I think I did. I want to say I
Hmm.
did. But you can swap places with a willing creature that's 30 feet away from you by clapping your hands. But you take 2d6 damage because you're using interdimensional travel to swap
Yeah.
places. And at 10th level, that range jumps up to 40 feet, but the damage jumps up to 2d10. And if you want to swap with an unwilling creature, which is usually the bad guy, they have to succeed or they have to fail on an intelligence saving throw. And if they succeed, nothing happens. But if they fail, then you swap places. So it's been definitely interesting to see how they're using
Absolutely.
it. It hasn't been used since, but I know that they're probably watching, and I know they're going to use it tomorrow, which is fine. I have plans.
That's
Um,
how it is.
so, what has been your favorite experience so far as a DM? I
Oh
know there's got to
man.
be a lot.
Fantasy Bachelor was really good. That
Yeah,
was
that
that was a
sounds
good time.
amazing.
It was also it was like very intense because I put a lot of very powerful people in that room because
Okay,
they all had to be there were some like minor fae that were just there, they're part of the court but not like pact level, like they're not archfey.
right.
um but I also had people from like other ones, like I introduced, like I think one of my players ended up going with a genie.
Oh,
um
okay.
yeah, so they took a genie pact and that was really good. I'm pulling up my PowerPoint. I do all of my DM prep through PowerPoint
That's
because
awesome.
I'm incredibly visual in my DM style. It's all like very uh, visual based and it all has to be like aesthetically coherent. That's how I got like my screen names and stuff. My Discord is the PowerPoint DM, and then my TikTok at the moment is aesthetics DM. So both of those kind of bleed together
Yeah.
um, to do something great. One of the players took a pact with Prism, who was they are a noble genie. That was very fun. They took that one. I just gave them like everything possible, and then the BBEG showed up also at this party, so that was
Interesting.
something. It was fantastic. My BBEG for that one, her name is Teller. She is an ancient blue dragon, and she really loves shapeshifting like a whole lot.
Ah, okay.
So she's very into theatrics and making big speeches and just, the classic villain, like, you have, a month and you're going to face me,
Yeah.
blah, that huge
Yeah.
theatrics and stuff. So they're stuck in between. It's a very like interesting and political campaign. I love that one a lot. Um, as a DM, that's probably my favorite. On the silly side of things, because I also do some like very very goofy campaigns. I did a one shot where they did not know it was the plot of Shrek. First of all, second of all,
Interesting.
instead of fighting the dragon and like rescuing Princess Fiona and stuff,
Uh-huh.
they went into a mine and found Skeletor. And in the mine, they rode mine carts like a roller coaster and also were
Oh,
fighting Skeletor.
that's awesome.
So, if that sounds insane, it was. I built like this whole little track and they had to like move along the track and they could use their move to like advance their cart faster somehow to like
Oh, okay.
get the range. But Skeletor's cart was always faster, so if at least one of them didn't use their move to advance the cart a little bit more, they would
Gotcha.
fall way behind, and then the close range people would just be screwed. So that was
Gotcha.
a weird game. I think that's my weirdest game. I don't know if it falls under like best, but definitely
Yeah.
weirdest.
Yeah, if it's
Definitely
memorable, I
weird.
100% count it. Oh man, I have too many favorite moments because we're all a bunch of idiots. So
Yep.
there's always really good moments. Um, the most recent one that comes to my mind is they were nearing the end of pulling from the deck, so there was only 4 cards left, and they haven't pulled any of the bad cards yet. They pulled a few, but not the worst ones.
The one. Yeah.
Yeah, and they made it a rule to every time a new party member comes in, they have to pull a card. And if they don't pull a card, they will try to fight you until you put one in, until you pull one. So everyone pulls a card. One person pulls the void. Their soul gets ripped out of their body. It's trapped somewhere else. And that didn't stop them. They kept pulling cards. So they pulled another one. They pulled the Donjon card. It teleports their body into an interdimensional prison, and all of their belongings get left behind. So what do? The deck is about to vanish. My warlock makes a call to his patron to try to refill the deck, and he rolled high, and I rolled insanely low. So I was like, you know what? I'll let it happen. Sure, it refills. What are you guys gonna do now? We're gonna keep pulling. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. So they keep pulling. The first card pulled is the Void. Another person, or the Donjon, another body gets transported into an interdimensional prison. So 3 out of my 6 players got yeeted into interdimensional place, right as they're at a really important place right now. So like losing people is super detrimental,
Yeah.
and we just ended the session there. I was like, we'll just pick it up because I need to figure things out. And the people that got yeeted, they texted me. They're like, hey, can I just like make a new character since we're only level 7 and there's no way we're going to go do a prison break. There's no way we're going to go fight some archfiend that's capturing these souls. And I'm like, well, you guys can definitely try. I'm not going to try to kill you, but if you just decide to die, that's
Yeah.
all you. But I had them. Two of them made, or one person made a new character, and it like ties into like another one of my favorite moments. But he made a new character, and I researched a little bit on 3.5 edition because one of my players made a wish to make all the gods mortal, which can definitely be done. I know gods don't have stat blocks, but I can sure make some, and you can try to kill them. But he wanted to make all the gods mortal because he hated all gods because he just he got lied to his entire life from the god that he was worshiping, and it completely collapsed the campaign because my campaign setting is a multiverse style campaign. So if you watched any DC movies, they reference
Yep.
Earth 52, Earth 2, Earth 3. So it's kind of the same concept. There's infinite amount of Earths, or the eternal plane or ethereal plane, but there's only 9 levels of hell. That's the way that I reference it. Whereas Modius is Tiamat, and there's only one Feywild, one Underdark, but there's infinite amount of Earths. So
That's
um,
sick. Yeah.
yeah, I watched the Flashpoint series of the Flash TV series, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. I have to. That's awesome. And so yeah, he made that wish, which provoked the Protector of the Weave to come reverse it. And in that small, I think it was like a 5 minute window, Cthulhu was able to free himself because the powers that put him into his prison, if you're going from a god that has all this insane power to a mortal god while you still have power, it's not as powerful as it was before. So they freed Cthulhu, And now they had a big bad, and now they have a bigger big bad. And that the Cthulhu is going around and plucking deities and warlock patrons and feeding off of their body. So my
Excellent.
my
Lovely.
current my current warlock, his ex patron, is being held in Cthulhu's prison, and he's feeding off of her life force. So he's like, no, I have to go save my mistress. So they're outside of a temple right now, trying to get what I whipped up and called it the scroll of the multiverse. It tells you where you are in any point in time and what Earth you're in, and where the portals
That's
are
nice.
to get to different Earths, or to go to the Underdark, to go to the Feywild. So they need it because they need it for the prison break, and they need it to kind of have an idea where Cthulhu is. But one of my players made his character kind of like the one of the inevitables in training. If you don't know what the
Mm.
inevitables are, they're kind of the protectors of everything. Like there's a protector of time and space. There's a protector, or like kind of like an enforcer of judgment. So there are these things in 3.5e that are insanely strong that you should never try to fight. And if they find you, they're going to do whatever they want with you. And one of them was hunting down one of my players that made that wish, and they didn't kill him. They just wanted to figure out how he was able to collapse the multiverse. And one of my players was like kind of the underling, so he was like, hey, stay here, keep watch, I gotta go do something. So now they now he has a babysitter, and it's just a great dynamic. I love everything about that.
Like home game, the one that Lisa is running, the one I've been in since high school. Uh, we do a lot of planar travel, like a lot. And earlier in the game, there was someone with the keen mind feat,
Oh.
like 20 intelligence wizard, fantastic. I love Solomon. He's no longer with us, and his character is in a coma forever? Question mark. He made a deal with Baba Yaga. Long story. That's the short
Oh,
end of it.
interesting.
Yeah. So there's a lot of deals and like crazy stuff that happens. We switch planes a lot, but the way that we ended up ruling it was part of the keen mind feat is that you always know like what time it is and you always know where north is. And so when we switch
Oh,
planes, Solomon would be like, "Wait, wait, something is wrong," because like all of the things that would give you the perspective of knowing exactly what time it is and knowing like where you are go away. So
right.
there's this very famous line, we quote it all the time anytime we shift planes, because Solomon's first thing when we entered the Feywild, and we didn't know we were in the Feywild,
Oh, okay.
because we walked through, there was this portal, and we didn't necessarily realize that we were walking into the Feywild, but he just looks up and he goes, "These aren't our stars." And that was just like such an iconic
That's
moment for
awesome.
that campaign, because using like intelligence to be like, "Uh-oh, we're now in the Feywild." I thought that was a very like cool way of ruling that. That
Yeah.
like because you can know what time it is and you always know where north is, you would also know if like that would be so thrown off by shifting planes.
Yeah.
And since then we've been to like the water plane, the I don't think we've been to the airplane. We've been in the ethereal plane like a million times, but that's just like a jump thing.
Yeah.
And a million like pocket dimensions.
I know. I mean, oh man. I had a good question that one of my players brought up, because I just introduced one of my good friends, Ryan, into our campaign, and he's never played D&D before. So I spent about like 3 hours with his character, because I wanted to make sure whatever ideas he had, I wanted to make sure that they were heard. Whether I had to homebrew it or look it up on Beyond, I wanted to make sure that it came across clear, because I want to make sure that everyone's comfortable and has a good experience their first time. So he ended up choosing a werewolf death domain cleric, and it's super interesting. I've never thought about playing a werewolf. I probably would have if I don't know why I just didn't blank it in my head, but yeah, we just introduced him, and I put him in my group chat, and I was like, oh, by the way, these are all the gods, deities, and patrons in the world. And at the very top is Raven Queen. And everyone was like, when the fuck did we meet the Raven Queen? I was like, well, she can take any form, so she's definitely been around. And they were just like, wait, they're looking through all their notes and flipping back, like, when the hell did we meet anything suspicious? And one of my players, the warlock, was like, well, if we collapsed the multiverse, she would have popped out and figured out what the hell was going on, or would have found me right away because I'm a warlock. And I'm like, well, who's to say where the Raven Queen was? You guys don't know if she was in the Underdark or in the Feywild or in your plane. You don't
Or
know
if
where
she
she
was even a
is.
person, she could have
Yeah.
been a raven. Like,
Yeah, I was like, you don't know where she is, but she's definitely around. Like, what? My warlock was like, I tried calling to her. Like, oh, she heard you. She didn't have to answer
they don't
to you.
have to respond. We have a really fun. Fae are always rules of three, and my DM made this rule, and I've adopted it into all of my campaigns. Anytime I play, like, generic fantasy setting, you if you have a person who's like connected to Titania, and you
Right.
say the word Titania or Titania, however you pronounce it, we've had fights about how to pronounce it, so apologies on however you pronounce
Yeah,
it.
however you
But if
pronounce it.
you say Titania 3 times, it's like a little ping, like it's like a little text notification to her, like you're poking her shoulder, like being like, mom, mom, mom. If you
Yeah.
say it 3 times, and so that's always the thing. And both me and my DM will keep track of how many times people say it, and sometimes terrible things happen if you bother her too much because she's a
Oh.
petty woman.
Have
So
you
she's
have you ever heard of the deck of many fates?
no.
So, Titania has her own card in the deck. So what's interesting about this card is that she offers you a trade, and if you sacrifice something extraordinarily precious to you, you can look at the top 3 cards of whatever deck she's in, whether it's a deck of many things or the deck of many fates. This is a 52 card deck. So you can look at the top 3 cards and pick whichever one you want for that trade, which I thought is super interesting because it took me a little bit to understand, like, why would she offer you a trade, but then I thought about the endless possibilities of why she would want to trade, and I'm like, man, I can't wait to incorporate this deck because I'm waiting to play in person because this one's a much larger deck and much worse things can happen. That deck is ruthless. There are some bad cards in there versus the deck of many things, but
I've been very good with semantics and like the whole Fae telling the truth, like lying with the truth. I've gotten
oh,
very,
okay,
I feel like as a DM using those like double meaning words
right,
a lot. And I'll get into like this headspace where I can just like go off. There was a time where I guested in another friend's campaign,
mm,
and he said, "Hey, I need you to be an archfey and kind of be like a distraction and guide them through this section of the Feywild." And her name is Precious. Like her name is Precious.
okay,
So they were like, "Hey, what's your name?" She's like, "My name is Precious." And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, we know that the Fae have like a big deal with names. What's your name?" And she's like, "Well, my name is Precious." And they're on these two sides of like this like big gorge essentially, and they're like talking to each other across this like huge crevice. And they're like, "Well, can you come over here?" And she said, "Uh, over where? Which where? There? Here or there? Which where is
oh.
here or there?" And like it was like huge loop thing. I don't know how I pulled it off to be honest, but like
That's awesome.
it made them crazy, but they couldn't like kill her because they needed a guide.
Oh,
And it was
okay.
just non-stop this like all of the double meanings any way that I could like obfuscate or like confuse them, I would. It was great.
So, you have a very unique play style.
Yes.
Where would you say that you would you say like you kind of created your own play style, or is it certain things that kind of influence the way that you play?
Uh yeah, a little bit. I made my own playstyle. I know that my playstyle, that was my motivation in starting TikTok actually, is because I know I have like kind of a different playstyle than a lot
Yeah.
of other people. And I want to show that. Like I want more people to see that there's not only one way to play, and you can kind of just do whatever. And if you find something that works for you, that's gonna work for you. So I'm incredibly visual centric. I need everything to be like aesthetically cohesive.
Right.
Mostly because I'm a designer and that's like very important to me, but also it's just for me everything is so visual and like it needs to be this thing that is fantastical and pulls you in, and it should be confusing and it should be absolutely wild. Um, and I want my players to feel like they're in this environment. Like I want it to be very personal. So balancing that like completely unheard of like fantasy, how can I'm gonna put mermaids in Venice and make you fight wizards in it, like, and then also balancing this like deeply personal experience is definitely where all of my stuff lies, and it's a very unique experience, and I'm very proud that like this is my DM style, is balancing that like absolutely crazy, fantastical, and deeply personal.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
mean,
really fun.
I feel like I feel like I have a super unique play style, but
Mhm.
it rubs a lot of people the wrong way because I do the complete opposite of traditional D&D.
Mhm.
Like I don't prep at all. Everything I everything I make, the world, the encounters, the story plots, I literally make it up as I go. And then I
Yeah.
remember everything. I don't take any notes at all. So when my players take notes, that's cool, but I remember the first person you met 8 sessions ago, and then I'll just bring them up eventually. And I know that rubs people. I know it rubs people wrong because people will spend like weeks in advance planning their session or a few days, and I just don't do it. I think what happened to me was I tried to plan a session for a whole week. I was doing the encounters, setting DCs for checks of what DC needed for this check, and it just went completely left. So like everything that I had planned never happened. So it rubbed me the wrong way to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna prep anymore. I know where my players are going to start. I know where they're going to be in the middle. And I know where I'm going to end the session. However, they want to get there is completely up to them. I have a plethora of NPCs, taverns, shops, black market merchants, patrons that they can potentially meet. I have so many things that go on in my head. Even during the day, I'll just be like randomly, like to myself, like just
Yep.
thinking, or I'll just zone out, and I'm just like, oh man, it's a really good idea. And then I'll write it down on my phone to take a note, or I'll just remember it later. But I feel like my play style is like heavily influenced by Joe Magninello because the way that his brain works is like super interesting to me. He can take one thing and then just let it completely spiral. Like, oh, well, if they do this, then this will trigger that, and then they'll meet this person, but that person shouldn't be met until this arc. But if I do this, I can bring him forward, and it's just, he just spirals. I forgot what interview it was. I need to look it up so I can take the clip of it and post it on TikTok because people should see how his brain works. But it's I don't know. It just really intrigued me how it worked. And once I feel like I did it once. Somebody told me something one of my players did, and I'm like, wait, that'll trigger this, which will do that, and then you would fight this, but you shouldn't fight it until later on. But I'll just tone it down a little bit so you can fight it now, so it makes sense. And ever since then, I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna do this every time. This is awesome.
The ball rolling, baby. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. There was a joke, well, kind of a joke, kind of true, that I DM off of a Pinterest board because,
Okay.
like, I prep with a PowerPoint. I do
Yeah.
do some prep, but it is mostly pictures. Like,
Yeah.
I will have stat blocks, if we're doing battle, but I tend to stay away from combat as a DM. Like, we do
Okay.
combat, but it's more rare. My players if they want combat, they can find combat, but they usually will avoid it. So
Okay.
not a ton of combat, but when I was running a Starfinder game, I was like almost literally just like DMing off of this Pinterest board I made. Like I'd be like, "Oh,
Oh,
I need
that's
an
awesome
NPC."
though.
Okay, boop. Like
Yeah.
I would just like keep it's all of my like Pinterest boards when I make a game Pinterest board is like a incredibly like these are going to be things I'm going to use, or like this is
Right.
specifically something, and I'll like reorganize it to be like linear. And then I have to lock the boards because one of my players will definitely go on my Pinterest and
Yeah.
find the board and then scroll through it and then find out who the big bad is because that one has, 7 pictures and is surrounded by zombies. I don't know.
Oh man. Yeah, I feel like that I feel like I'm a pretty visual person myself. Like when I tried to find inspiration for where the temple, what it's going to look like, how many rooms is it going to have, what does it look like on the inside, how's the lighting. I looked at like so many temples a few days ago, and like the inside of temples. I even looked at Mayan temples because it's something that's super ancient and really old and is haunted at some point. I know my players are in here because I see you in the chat. Yes, it's haunted, so be prepared for tomorrow. It's haunted. But yeah, I was looking at so many references, and I feel like that helps a lot, especially when you're trying to describe environment or weather or time of day. I feel like having some type of visual representation definitely helps. So I'm probably gonna download Pinterest again and
Yeah.
start making boards because that's a really good tool. And I know that you kind of spoke on it a little bit, how you are more focused on the story versus the encounters.
Mhm.
Um, how do you go about getting your players to engage in RP?
Oh, one of my groups is I don't need to worry about them at all. The
Okay.
Dragonless crowd, no need to. They will RP if I like literally just like don't plan anything and show up, and I'll be like, okay, here's a new town. They will RP the entire time. Like I don't need to worry
Okay.
about them at all. But for my like college group, some of them had never played when we first started. Like
Right.
literally I have no idea how this group got together. I know I turned to like one of the other girls that's in my major and said like, "Hey, I kind of want to start playing D&D. Would you want to do that? And you can invite some of your friends." And then we just kind of it just kind of happened. And then we started playing together. But a lot of them were terrified to RP, and now we're
Yeah.
all in a podcast together, and like they do pretty well with it. So my advice for DMs is to make yourself the fool to make them feel less awkward. Because if I start being completely out there and, put on all of these accents and put on something that's absolutely ridiculous and like fantastical, then like they'll feel less awkward stepping a little bit out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because if like they see me stepping out of my comfort zone, then that will help them feel more comfortable to step out of theirs. And then also, if you're having a player that is like specifically very awkward, like doesn't really want to role play, I will have a lot of like private moments with characters. Like
Yeah.
I will make an effort to make sure that this person feels important. Um, One of my players was like very like anxious, like she was very nervous about playing, and so I would like be like, okay, I'm going to have like I'm going to make her character important. Like I'm going to give her a purpose that is bigger that she can feel really attached to and
Right.
like give her some asides that are unique experiences that she then has to go tell the group about, and then that gets them engaged and she is the informant for this issue. um she One of the players was playing a secret princess, and
Oh.
she like didn't want to tell anybody this, and she was very shy to RP, and she was like very like secluded from the group. And I'm like, okay, some of that is going to be because like you don't want to be found out, but you should still like participate and stuff. And then we had
Yeah.
this thing where it was, oh shoot, we need to get into this incredibly prestigious place. I don't know, like no, none of us have anything, like we don't know how we're going to get in. It says like, you have to know somebody or like basically be royalty. And then she got this like
Oh.
big moment of like, don't worry, they're with me, and like flashed a signet ring, and they're all like,
Oh. Damn,
ah.
that's a really cool moment. That's
So it
awesome.
was, yeah. And she was like such a shy like player, and then she got to like have this big moment of getting to do something. And so I would say definitely like even the shy ones, if you give them the opportunity, they'll usually take it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because I can deal with like people like not quite knowing how to RP, and like that's fine. But like getting people to to engage and stuff is definitely something that like takes practice. You have to work both ways and consider like their comfort zone while still making them feel important but not called out,
Right.
you know.
I feel like for me in the beginning, I feel like RP was probably the hardest thing to do
Hmm.
because, I mean, I have an abundance of voices for myself that I do like,
Hmm.
just for fun with my wife or my son. And for the longest time, I just felt like kind of weird doing voices. Like I didn't want to do one, and then people would just be like, I don't know. But luckily, all my in-person friends were all just a bunch of geeks that have an abundance of voices. So what it took for me was when one of my friends, Ben, DM'd and he did a voice, and I'm like, oh, we're doing this, and I I just feel like that kind of just like opened the door, and
Yeah.
now I have a voice for my big bad. I have a voice for the god of wealth, the curator that has an item for everyone in the multiverse, and they love that guy right now. He's this big furry 4 foot hamster that has a very very distinctive voice that is super recognizable. But we'll get to the voice section soon because I'm excited to hear some. If you don't have to, but just to see what kind of voices you have for certain characters. But segue to that one for sure soon. um, so what? And we kind of spoke on it a little bit. So what tips would you give for DMs to kind of getting the ball rolling for newer people who want to RP but just either don't know the cues or don't know when the right time is to interject?
Engaging directly is definitely the most like important. Like if you're having somebody who's like not quite sure how to get into role play, engaging directly is something that's really important. And asides are also something that's really nice. Also, if you have the opportunity to, if you are playing in person and you have the opportunity to have two rooms where you can tell everyone to leave the table, that is so powerful. Or you say, hey,
Ooh, yeah,
everyone except for Emma, take your headphones off.
yeah,
And just have, like, you have to, like, watch them take their headphones off. And they're still there watching the screen, trying to figure out what you're saying if you're playing virtually. And, like,
yeah,
watching this, like, thing happen and watching, like, me go, like, but like they can't hear the words, and that's a power move as a DM. And then
yeah,
it gives that other person this sense of privacy. So like if one of their hangups is like, I don't want to make an idiot of myself in front of the whole group, and that's why they're scared to RP, that kind of takes that away because it's just like you and the DM, and it gives you like this like cool solo moment. And then also everybody else builds suspense for them because they don't know what's happening.
yeah,
And yeah, and so definitely asides are something that I utilize a lot, and I would highly recommend. It helped me a lot when I first started playing. Lisa uses asides a lot. Like my DM uses asides, not so much anymore because we're virtual, but it used to be like, okay, everyone leave the table now when we were playing in person. Like just go into the kitchen. You're going to leave this room, and we will tell you when you can come back. And that is powerful.
yeah. I mean, I feel like that's one of the biggest mistakes I've did because I've had a few one-on-one moments where like, hey, you triggered this, so you get this piece of information, or this person just wants to talk to you. So I wish I would have done the take your headphones off thing. That would have been so perfect. So what I did is
Well,
I just made a separate channel for one-on-one moments. I'm like, okay, I need you to come with me, and we would go to the one-on-one moments. I'll tell them this big grand thing, and they go back, and they're just like, oh shit. So this and this happened, and like in my head, I know it would have been so much more impactful to their backstories or just to their character. Like it would have just stung that much more if I would have just did the take your headphones off. I didn't think about that. That's so awesome.
no, I mean, you could use it in the
Oh,
future now, and that
100%.
works.
We're playing our
Yep.
last online game tomorrow, so there's definitely going to be some one-on-one moments for sure. And
It's very fun. I like it a lot.
I know I feel like I'm giving too much away to my players because they're watching, but yes, there's one-on-one moments. Something's going to happen. um,
Hmm.
So I know we were about to talk about it, but do you have any voices for your characters, or any notable ones that kind of come up a lot, like throughout your settings?
Yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be good if you have to drink something.
Um. Okay, so it's because some of them are like, so I can't really do deep voices. That's not really in my range. I've only done it once. I think it's abysmal. I hate
Oh,
it. I hate when I
okay.
do my deep voice. My players are obsessed with it and have decided that like an NPC that they're going to be with for the entire next arc of the podcast is going to have this like deep, kind of like yelling, rasping voice.
Yeah.
Because I was just testing out voices and I'm like, I can't give another character a southern accent because that's my default. My grandma is from the South. Like,
Oh, okay.
I can slip, I can slip into southern really easy and just like go off on that for forever. But I try not to because I just end up giving all of the NPCs that.
Right.
Um, so Hadley is kind of down here and it's very obnoxious and it hurts my voice after a long time. But
It's
my
really
players
good
absolutely
though.
love it and I don't know why.
It's really good.
So that's one. I also do a British woman who I just kind of do this like very flowery voice and I can explain things very extensively when I get into this one. And sometimes they're a little bit snobbier and don't really care at all about what you're doing.
That's
Why are
awesome.
you here? Like, and just getting into this thing. And then on accident I made the Hillbilly Boys, which I don't know if I'll be able to do on here. But they were real sweethearts. They were just going off about something, you know. Like, so I have some voices. Most of them are Southern, though.
That's awesome though. They're really good.
Thank you.
Like if you were my DM, I would be highly impressed.
Yeah, I like get into some that are basically just like my voice, but like a little more like flamboyant. Like you could do a lot with like
Okay.
tone and like
Yeah.
how you like explain things and like diction and stuff. But um, yeah, it's really fun. I definitely did not start with that. Like it took a while for me to like get the courage to try out voices and stuff. I've tried to do Russian. I can't do that one at all. It goes badly. I've tried to do French. Doesn't. Just
Yeah.
doesn't.
There's been a few where like it sounds good in the shower, but then like when I'm about to start and I start practicing it, I'm like, where did it go? Because it
Yep.
I don't know what happened. But I I'm trying to do ones that my players heard because I don't want to do one that they haven't heard and
Right?
then wonder what is it. So I'm my voice is really weird. So it's like right in the middle. So
Yep.
I can do it somewhat high. I can go really really low. Like for the big bad, he sounds like this and is very terrifying. Yeah.
I
So
love
that was the initial big bad. So when my player got possessed by using trying to make a packed weapon or a new packed weapon, he attuned to the weapon and in turn got possessed by the fallen god that was in the sword, which happened to be the big bad, who is not the big bad anymore though. And the voice that I do for the god of wealth, the kind of magic shop curator guy, he kind of sounds like Kermit the Frog, but he kind of has an item for every adventurer. And and he's this 4 foot tall hamster, and he's huge, and they just love him. They love him.
that. That's so cute. Yeah, I don't think I've only encountered one voice that I don't like that a DM has ever done. I don't know if Stevie is still watching. He was in the stream chat, but there's a character he does named Tilly, I think. Man, hate that guy. It's like this like very squeaky, like I think it's a tabaxi, and I would rather die. Like we all like start doing it and we'll be like, no, no.
Oh
It's
man.
it's so funny. We give him a hard time, but it's great. It's just annoying.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny because some majority of the time I believe I have two people who do voices for their characters and the others don't, which is completely fine because it's a common misconception that you have to have a voice for your character or you have to have a voice for NPCs. Common misconception. You don't need to. It's good for flavoring purposes or to draw your players in, but definitely not needed. I wish I would have known that in the beginning because I tried really hard and I just couldn't muster up the courage to do one in front of people that were besides my friends because, my friends don't care. Oh man, but I have a few voices that they are going to meet pretty soon that they're going to hate because I hate doing it. Oh man.
Surprise you, and they're like, "No, you have to do this for a whole arc now." And I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, fine." Like,
Yeah.
sure, I can be down here for a whole arc. That won't destroy my voice by the end of our 2-hour game.
Yeah, so when my players like the curator, kind of whipping up something to where he's kind of gonna be their mentor and take them where they need to go, because they love the voice so much. They're like, man, I want to play him as a character, and I'm gonna try to do the voice. I'm like, man, you guys like him that much? I'll have to do something like a beach day or something where he just kind of hangs around with them.
After every big mystery in the Monster of the Week podcast that I run, we do what we call anime filler episodes. And so I give them one episode where they're like, tell them in advance. I'm like, hey, okay, so here's kind of the trope that we are doing today.
Gotcha.
So you get the concept of the trope. I will be providing activities, but there will also be like you don't have to engage with them. So
Okay.
we did like a Halloween episode for fun that we didn't end up recording, but it was like classic Halloween party. And I was like, okay, you are friends with aliens. Go ahead and explain Halloween to the aliens. And they're like, we're going to take them to the party. I'm like, they are 7 feet tall. And they're like, we're going to take the aliens to the party. And I'm like,
There's like
okay.
no stopping them.
Yeah, there's no stopping them, but they had like a great time and then they got into a bunch of mischief and like I think it's important to like prioritize a couple downtime episodes if you can.
Yeah.
In our long game, my home game, our DM gave us downtime. We did not know what to do with it
Yeah.
because she never gives us downtime and it was like the most challenging encounter we'd had in a while because we just like didn't know what to do with downtime. So like downtime with like a prompt, I highly recommend.
Yeah. Like I'm planning something. Again, I know my players are watching, but it's not a surprise. I've talked about it before, or I was going to talk about it, but here is some information. So I'm planning on making a poker game in D&D that uses dice. So
Yeah.
my cousin who was coming down from Oregon ordered 100 of these dice. So, because you need 5 of them to play, and we have a good amount of players, and we just want to have extra. So, if new players come
Yeah.
along over the years or over the months, here's a set. You can play poker with us now whenever we decide to play it. And yeah, when he's coming down next weekend, and that's when we're gonna do our first in-person game in like over a year, probably more. And I've been trying to think of like downtime stuff for them to do, but they're the type of players that like want to get things done so they can, you know, for the sake of getting it done. But I always put stuff in their way. So I'm like, they're due for their beach day.
Absolutely. Have you ever seen? It's like a published D&D game. I believe it's called Highs and Lows.
Yes, I have.
Yes.
There's a few. Um, there's I believe there's like 3 or 4 that are published on the DMs Guild and
Hmm.
Reddit, and it's various forms of poker games or highs and lows, blackjack.
Yeah.
But there is this poker game. I think it's more prominent in like traditional Mexican cultures. So
Hmm.
it's five dice, and it's a 9 of clubs, 10 of clubs, and then a king, queen, jack, and ace. So you're just trying to make the best hand in a 5 card
Hmm.
poker game, pretty much, but it's with dice. And I couldn't find anything on it. Like in D&D, I was like, oh, maybe there's something like it. There is something that's like vaguely like it that uses D6s, but I mean, I feel like with the D6, you won't make that great of hands versus
Yeah.
trying to make a straight or a full house. So I was like, oh, I kind of like that idea. Because we're planning to play Liar's Dice for Pirates of the Caribbean. I didn't know about that. My player brought it up, and I was like, I've never played it, but I'd be interested in playing it. Cause like, oh yeah, it's mainly like a drinking game, but we can probably use it in D&D. And I looked it up, and the video that I found didn't really explain it too good. So I had to go back and watch Orlando Bloom and Squidface play it in a scene, and the way that they played it, in my whole entire head, I was like, yes, this is how I need to role play this when they play it. This is
Yes.
amazing. And so I think I'm going to incorporate Liar's Dice and the 5 card poker pretty soon because they're due for a beach day. They've had a lot of crap happen to them these past sessions.
Yeah.
Um, but do you have a formula for your campaign? So let's say you're starting a brand new campaign,
Mhm.
whether it's with the same players, new players. Do you have a formula for each, or do you have just like one set formula for whatever type of players you come across?
Um, it's a little bit. It basically is the same formula. It's just how much flexibility gets put into it, if that makes sense. Because for Dragonless, I'm playing with three very experienced people.
Okay.
Like, RP is their main goal. Like, they love RP, they love getting into political intrigue. And so the way I would set up that game is I know the beginning
Right.
and I know the end. I kind of know that, like, when we started, they were in, like, the capital city, and, like, they got to see all of this, like, political stuff being put in, like, first. And then they fled the city, and I knew they had to get over to the other continent because it's, like, less, like, militarized over there. And they wanted to get, like, as far away from that as possible. And then I knew what was going to happen in the end. But, like, where they would go adventuring around that continent and, like, get from there. I knew I had to introduce the BBEG at some point, and that the BBEG was going to come to them and be like, hey, I know that you guys have this very powerful artifact, and I'm done messing around. There's going to be a war. You can decide which side you're going to be on, and that's how it's going to be. See you in
That's
three
awesome.
months, either dead or on my side. And that's how, like, I knew that was going to happen at some point, but, like,
Yeah.
figuring out where that would be, and then also the warlock losing his pact threw a whole thing into that,
Yeah.
and they went to the Feywild for a hot minute. They made another deal with another god, so, like, stuff gets thrown around. I know how that game is going to end. One major thing just happened that's going to impact the end of that game.
Right.
But it's great. They're in here, so I can't explain
Yeah.
the implications of, here's this very cursed artifact. It is, like, possibly, like, the most evil thing that, like, gods are fighting over this. I'm gonna put it on. And then we ended the session. So that's how the last session ended.
Gotta love D
So
and
there
D.
will be repercussions for that. But with more, like, inexperienced players and stuff, I more, like, think things through a little bit more, I guess.
Yeah.
It's more on me to, like, direct the plot. It's not necessarily railroady because I try and give them as much flexibility as possible, and it's still a little bit like I want it to be more open world, but I'll give them more, like, defined options in what to do of open world.
Okay.
So I generally find that, like, throwing new players into open, like, completely open world style is a terrible idea. Like, you
Yeah.
need to at least give them, like, a solid quest.
Yeah.
Um, when I tried to throw, like, relatively new players in, we'd played one game together, and then I built an open world game and said, okay. And then they said, we're joining the army. And I said,
Oh.
no!
That's all you're
So,
supposed to
yeah, that
do.
one didn't work. Like, you're supposed to fight the army!
Yeah, not
They're
join
not
them.
the good guys!
Oh man,
But
that's
they're like, it's
interesting.
easier to join the army. And I'm like, oh no.
Fight them from the inside. Fight the man.
Yeah. It was something. It was hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like kind of that you kind of touched on it a little bit is I think it's good to have that kind of balance. I mean, if you have a full-on railroad module, it could get kind of repetitive. Go to the town master, get a quest, go do the quest, come back, get money, rinse and repeat. Kind of gets a little bit boring after a while. So I gave my players, they have a definitive quest line of things that they need to do, but
Mm.
they can branch out, go talk to someone else, get a side quest, start doing the side quest. Um, like their main quest was to find this dragon and to slay this dragon that's been terrorizing the town. What do? They they just went completely left. They they still need to go find the dragon eventually.
Yeah.
That's their first quest, but it turned into a very small little thing they'll do later when they get strong enough. Um, but yeah, I feel like it's good to kind of give your players a little bit of room to run around if they need to run around or have tendencies to run around.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's like hit and miss. It depends on what type of players you get. If
Yeah.
they just want to go straight to the quests, or if they want to visit every single shop in the town that you make, or if they want to go get drunk in the tavern until the next day. Yeah, it's like hit and miss, hit and
I
miss.
would also say be very like my another huge tip for like either new DMs or any level of DM is don't be afraid to change things up, like modify heavily based on what you find your play group is. Like
Hmm.
if you think like even if you're like, "Hey guys, I think I want to do a lore heavy game," and everyone says, "Yeah." And then they show up and they're still absolute dinguses.
Or
Then you
motor
need to
hobos.
modify to fit that a little bit. I ran a Starfinder game and Starfinder is very like technical compared to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. There's a lot more numbers and a lot more stuff you have to think through. So I'm
Right.
like, "Hey, we're going to learn this really complex system. Do you guys want to do a very like lore heavy like we did like Ocean's 11
Oh,
like yeah,
interesting.
so it was like casino heist space stuff.
Gotcha.
And I thought that would be great. It is one of the worst games I've ever ran.
Oh man.
Half of the group I like combined two of like my groups because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna learn a new system. Like I'll invite everybody and see what happens. Way too many players. The two groups have very different play styles. It was just a very weird hodgepodge.
Okay.
Pun intended because there was a character named Hodgepodge that they adopted, but like it was not right. And so I learned a lot from that experience, but it was definitely like you have to adopt, like you have to adapt to your group.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just is weird, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the game that I've been writing, I spent, ugh, man, I just finished it, but now I know I need to go revisit it a little bit now. Um, I spent 7 months writing a homebrewed campaign inspired by The Last of Us. So if you ever played The Last of Us or Last of Us 2, it's completely fine in this setting because it takes place in between both games.
Oh,
And
nice.
I wrote everything. I wrote the setting, I wrote the classes, the weapons, the schematic system. I made a schematic system. I made a scavenging system. I made a crafting system. So my big brain didn't even think maybe I should go look at the cipher system. Maybe I should go look at Starfinder or Pathfinder and just kind of.
Monster of the Week is also another like fantastic underrated game. It's really easy to pick up. Highly recommended. It's like a supernatural Buffy the Vampire Slayer
Oh, okay.
type thing. It's modeled off of all of those that genre
Yeah,
of thing, and it's fantastic. It's what my podcast is. I like highly recommend it because it's really easy to pick up. I made a character in 15 minutes.
that
So
is that is awesome.
yeah,
By the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning. If you guys want to check out their podcast, all their links are in their bio. Clandestine
yeah.
podcast. I listened to a few episodes and I'm highly invested.
The first episode is a little rough audio editing wise.
Yeah.
It was just a feat because I interviewed each of the players separately.
Okay.
I said we did like a huge arc before, and then I said like, "Hey guys, you guys are really into this, and I have a very large plot. We could call the game here, and that could be the end of it. You guys can solve Bigfoot, you can save gay Bigfoot, and we can call that the end of what we're doing. Or I have a bigger plot here, and there's already been hints into the bigger plot here. Would you guys want to keep going for a podcast?" And they all said yes, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So I interviewed each of them in recording separately and then spliced it all together to create a cohesive story for like the summary episode or episode 0. And so
Okay.
that was so much editing. I'm very happy with the way it turned out. I wish I just would have like had better like mic and stuff earlier, but you know,
Yeah.
you live and learn.
Yeah. I mean, that I think that's what's my fear about the campaign that I wrote is it's heavily lore based. There's encounters, but it's more Call of Cthulhu styled where
Yep.
if you come across the monsters, are you really going to try shooting an infected and then that sound, that big sound, if you don't have a suppressor or anything to suppress that sound, it's going to alert clickers or more. And it's kind of like fight or flight. You fight if you
Yeah.
have to. You're just trying to get from point A to point B. And my players, I think I have a good mix. Honestly, they love to roleplay and they love encounters. So I'm trying to fix the narrative a bit to where there is a little bit more encounters, but it's still very heavily roleplay and story. I invested so much time writing this story. Like if you ever played Last of Us 1 and Last of Us 2, those stories like messed me up. Like I was a mess. Like I was crying, I was mad. Like it pulled so many emotions out. And I think that's what I'm trying to do in this story because there in this story that I wrote, there is a lot of events that are going to happen based on the decisions that you make. So there is like five different ways that the story can end. I believe there's like 6 or 7 endings to the story that I wrote, depending on what happens. I have like a whole table like if this happened at this place, then you get this ending. And it's gives it that like replay ability factor. And I have a bunch of people on my TikTok like make a Patreon, put it on
Yeah.
Patreon. And I'm like, I'm going to eventually. I just don't think it's ready. It's like my
No,
baby that I need to set free, but I don't ever think
absolutely
it's
do
ready.
your prep before starting Patreon. Like
Yeah.
as someone with a Patreon, it's hard. Like I'm not gonna like be like, oh, Patreon's so easy. Like it
Yeah.
is something that takes a lot of effort, but it is cool and it's nice to have something that's monthly because it's more like reliable. Um, so it's there's pros and cons to it, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It just takes a lot of work.
Yeah. I'm definitely be doing a little bit of research here and there just to kind of have an idea of what to do. I'm still trying to work out the kinks of what I want to do for my Patreon, but for sure gonna be putting up a whole bunch of homebrew items, homebrewed feats, because that's what I'm surprisingly good at is making random generic things. And eventually, I'm gonna make a Patreon, probably soon. That's probably all I'm gonna say is sometime soon, relatively soon, probably within the next month or so. So
Ooh.
I I know we talked about a little bit about tips for new DMs. So if you can give me like at least 5 tips for a brand new DM, maybe somebody who's never played but it has always has an interest and now has a group of friends, but nobody wants to DM. So he takes the reins up, he or she does. What's the tips that you would give?
Dare to be stupid. That's a huge one. That is a Weird Al quote. But just it's okay if you make a fool of yourself because ultimately you are controlling the story, and if your something doesn't quite go right with your notes, the players don't know that. So you can, if you mess up, it's totally fine because the players are like you are the GM, you are the game master, and you are controlling the story. And if things go a little bit wrong, that's okay because you can correct from it, and they won't know.
Yeah,
They'll never know. um, um. So dare to be stupid. Um. Try if don't get caught up in what you should be doing. Try and find your style.
yes,
For sure because like I wasn't vibing with anything. Like I was like, I combat style, I can't do that. And so I found this like very unique style and now it's like my trademark. I enjoy it a whole lot.
yeah,
So, you know, it's okay to be unique. You can break any mold. You don't have to be Matt Mercer. Like you won't
hundred
be Matt Mercer.
percent, 100%.
The the Matt Mercer effect I think is incredibly toxic and if you don't know what
Yes,
that is the like when new DMs get started, they feel this like intense pressure because they started with a game like Critical Role or Dimension 20 or Taz. Although the Taz boys are idiots at first, so it's a
yeah,
little more chill. So they start with these fantastic podcast shows with people with a whole bunch of experience and like
Hmm.
professional equipment and everything. They feel like they have to be that. You don't. You can do whatever. My first game was with Legos and like a checkerboard as the mat.
That's awesome.
It can be anything. It's okay to be messy. That's also another
Yes.
one. I feel like it's okay to be messy is another one. Um, and then the last one, I guess, is yes and like always be prepared. They're going to throw a wrench in your plans. That's not like a question of like, what if my
Yeah.
plans get messed up? They will. So just be prepared to roll with it. Try not to
Yeah.
get so hung up on it. Just roll with the punches.
You're very, very insightful. I will definitely have to say those are some really great tips. And to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about the Matt Mercer effect. So I made a video about this on TikTok and I talked about the Matt Mercer effect. So there is this notion when people like myself, because that's the reason why I made this video, because that happened to me. I got the whiff of the Matt Mercer effect. I'm a huge Critical Role fan. As you can see, I have a sweatshirt and all the pops behind me.
Yeah.
I love Critical Role. Great show. I also love Dimension 20.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in that feud. I like both. But
I love Taz. I love Critical Role. I haven't watched Dimension 20 yet. My friends are trying to get me to watch it. I would like to watch it, but I haven't started yet because
yeah,
I've been, you know, doing
doing
stuff.
stuff with Chibi Thulu. But yeah, I was definitely a part of that Matt Mercer effect. I felt like I needed to make this democracy and this great city and all these regions, and I need to have these plethora of voices and this amazing encounter space. And I set myself up to fail. I mean,
Yeah.
100% I set myself up to fail. Uh, what what I said in my video, I was really surprised because I was like, wow, that's really good. Don't try to be someone else. Be the first you.
Yeah.
Create your own play style. Do what is comfortable for you. You don't have to use voices. You don't need this crazy expensive Dwarven Forge encounter or dungeon tiles. Go to Home Depot and buy some foam.
Yeah.
I've
Foam.
literally
Oh
have
my
done
gosh,
that.
that's foam. Yeah, just get yourself like a block. It's on the other side of the room, so I won't get it. But just get yourself a block of like Home Depot foam. I like the green one. Yep.
Bam,
And paint it,
foam.
slap some gray
Yeah.
on there,
What I
dab it.
what I did with mine is this is a future encounter. So what this is down here is this plops out, and
Yep.
you can put your phone under here and have a portal playing on a loop. Yeah.
That's so good. I had a big for the final boss fight of like my first game with my college group. I had this like lava that I could pop in and out.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Um, and then I also had like lava that I could put on top because they were fighting inside of this big mountain and they were fighting this giant who was an asshole. He would like pick up lava rocks and throw it at them. But it was always a constant risk of if you fall or you get pushed, because that's one of his big things is he'll just try and kick you into the lava. Like
Makes
he is
sense.
well aware that like he is like a stone giant and he can be fine. He can like it still hurts, but like he can be fine if he gets in the lava, but if you get in the lava he knows that will kill you, and that was like such a weird encounter.
Yeah.
I really enjoy using environments as the encounter a lot of the time, like,
Yes.
and my players know that. They know that hypothermia is a concern. They know that like you could drown. Like I generally don't because some of my players have like specific. I use the RPG consent sheet by Monty Cook Games. Highly recommend. Go download it. It's free. Um, I've made a digital version if you want. It's on my Google Drive. Just make a copy
Ooh,
of it.
awesome.
Anybody can use it. Then it's anonymous and you can just send it to your players. That's how I did it. And then I
Awesome.
compiled a list of like all of their like hard no's, and
Mm.
drowning is one of them. So like I won't ever actually make them drowned, but
Yeah.
like the idea that you could
Right.
is enough to create more tension.
Yeah.
Or
100%.
like snow or wind or it's something that I feel like not a lot of DMs utilize, and that's something that like can mess them up pretty fast if you use the right environment.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other tips that I haven't said on the podcast before because I don't want to be super repetitive.
Yeah.
Um, if you're looking to run something that is
Mhm.
fairly easy to run, I highly suggest just going out and ordering the Stranger Things starter kit. It is not a campaign, it is a one shot. So you can run it front to back literally within 3, maybe 4 hours. And it's really well written for a first time DM. It sets you up for, okay, once they get here, say this, and this is how you're going to describe the environment. So it's pretty much setting you up. It does a good job at holding your hand through the from start to finish, just so that way you kind of have an idea of how to describe things, how to describe encounters, when to ask for checks, because it does tell you to ask for a check at this point in time. And the stat blocks are super easy to run. Does a good job at describing encounters. Comes with pre-made character sheets in case you don't know how to make characters, and it comes with its own set of clickety clackety dice and 2 Demigorgon minis. So you can just get a piece of
Yep.
paper and fight your Demigorgon. Um, Foam is your best friend. If you're trying to make encounters, you can do wonders with some foam. Or go to Amazon, look up some 3D printed walls, houses, and get some paint. This is at the level that I'm at now, just getting 3D printed stuff
Oh, it's
and ruins and so on and so forth. But that's just all painted walls, 3D printed painted stuff, and some super glue and some fake moss from Hobby Lobby. And there is an abundance of tutorials on YouTube. Highly suggest Black Magic Craft. He is one of my favorite crafting YouTube channels, and he has free templates in his descriptions of his videos for all of the stuff he makes. So definitely check him out if you're trying to spice up your encounters. Super easy stuff to make.
there's a creator that I really like, and I like take that's how I got really how I got like started and got passionate about D&D was an account called rnw.net, or that's like their sometimes it's just
Ooh, okay.
rnw, but I believe it is two people, but the main girl does a lot of it, and she does paper. All of her stuff is like paper and printouts, and I
Interesting.
bought one called Fae Fair, and it's like a carnival for fairies.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
so you print out all the stuff, and then it's all like fold up, like a kind of origami is like paper craft.
Okay,
So you get like these little stands that like pop up, and they have vegetables in them, and
that's
like
awesome.
little like party games and stuff that you can fold up. And it comes with most of her stuff also comes with a module, and it's like really fairly priced. I know it's also a team of people, so they can keep the cost down a little bit,
Yeah.
but it was like 10 or 15 bucks for like a whole like it was like a 1 to 2 game thing.
Okay,
Super cute, comes with all the assets and stuff, and then you just print it and fold it up and you have a game. And I think
that's
that's
awesome.
very cool. I make minis sometimes with bottle caps, and I cut out
Yes.
like I take a bottle cap, cut out a character and stick it on the bottle cap.
I
That's
have a
another cheap mini.
I have interesting things with bottle caps because there is some really cool bottle caps that you can find on some bottles that can maybe be an ancient relic or a ruin, or maybe it's something you can take to a merchant that only he knows what it is, and maybe he'll give you something really cool if you bring it to him. So I've been collecting bottle caps this whole entire year from various
Yes.
bottles because I have big plans for them when we play in person. I've been
Perfect.
buying all of this resin diamonds, gold coins, silver coins because I'm trying to make the game have like props in a way to
Yeah,
like
I
make my
love
players
props.
in tune. So I'm gonna give them their own gold pouches so they can keep track of their money. And if they get diamonds, I'm actually going to give them a resin diamond.
Yeah.
And and especially
I
that's the reason why I wanted to incorporate this in the game. So when we play in person, they're really pulling from a deck.
Yeah. When I do this thing where I give them like inspiration points as physical, not as things on their character sheet.
Okay.
And I had a video that went like a little bit viral about that, which was wild to me because I did not expect it to. I use those funny shaped erasers like that you
Oh,
give like
that's
first
awesome.
graders.
Yeah.
And it's like usually they're in like that like little section in the front of
Yeah.
Target that has all the dollar stuff. It's like
Right.
$1 for like 50 of them. And I just like toss one of those and like that's your inspiration point. And if you lose it, you do lose it. But they will hold on to it and they will not use an inspiration point when like desperately possible because they want to keep the cute little eraser or whatever.
That's
But
awesome.
it's something that's become very special. And I have these like little unicorns that are so cute. And so instead of getting inspiration points, you get a unicorn. Um, and it's just become something that's like very unique. And some of my players, even though we're virtual, still have theirs, which is wild to me. Like it came up in like our chat the other day, and someone's like, "Oh, remember when like we had the unicorns?" And then like Mary pulls out a picture of the unicorn that she still has from like 3 years ago, and I'm like,
Wow.
"How? Like what? That's so funny."
That's awesome.
I think it's cute. Just so cute.
All
Oh,
right.
one of my friends in the chat also has them still.
Well, we love a good uniform eraser. I think that's one of your players, Lonely
Yeah,
Yoshi. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, guys. So we're at the point where if you guys have any questions for us, we're more than happy to take a few minutes to answer some questions. I know Lonely Yoshi had a good question about the swap feat. So if they swap with the big bad doesn't take damage. The only person taking damage is the caster that's using it to travel interdimensionally to swap places, if that makes sense. But the big damage, um, it's just me trying to balance it out. So it's kind of more of like a risk reward type of thing. So yes, you're taking a lot of damage, but you're getting a super quick out from where you are.
Fun bonus Misty Step, but better.
Yeah. See, I love Misty Step. Misty
It's
Step is
good.
like one of my favorite spells. Or there is, um, it's in the Artificer class. I haven't played Artificer that much, but there is, I think it's part of the Armorer class to where you can teleport 15 feet in an unoccupied space. That's amazing. Lonely Yoshi says that they still have two more. So I
He's
seen
got two.
he's got two. So I seen the Feats one. I caught wind of that one and I remembered it, but I don't think I was looking at the chat on the other one. But I have a really good question for you. Um, one of my players were talking about the beast that is TikTok. So when you started posting TikTok, did you get that? Did you kind of have an idea of like, oh, this is eventually going to catch wind, or was it just like one day you woke up and then just bam, you had all of these followers?
Okay, so it was kind of in phases. Like I would get like a big boom of followers and then like nothing for like a while,
Yeah.
and then like another big boom. Like that just happened again with like the Chibi Thulu. I just gained like
Yep.
over 5K. I was at 33K for literally 2 months.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm at 40 like in like a day. So TikTok is very
Interesting.
don't get so caught up in the numbers. It will
Yes.
destroy your mental health. But to answer
100%.
your question, how I got like started and everything was I got back from my first co-op that like didn't go so great cuz like COVID happened, and I moved to Baltimore and it was great, and I was living in a big city with a like my first like big design job, and then COVID happened and they sent all the interns home. So that sucked, and I was like, man, I'm really passionate about D&D and it's helped me a lot right now. I'm gonna start posting my ideas online because this community seems pretty like they're pretty chill. I see some other, queer people that's generally accepted, which is nice because by the way, on Instagram it's not.
Mm-mm.
Um
Nope.
so like people are pretty friendly. I'm gonna share some of my playstyle like with everybody, and then like one of the videos like took off and I just like kept doing it. And then I kind of like changed routes a few times of like at first I was only doing D&D shops, which are like all still like up and posted on like my Google Drive and stuff. There's like I started out like writing like whole one shots essentially,
Okay.
and just like putting them up online for free. And
Right.
that's kind of how like it kickstarted everything. And then like I was like I like started up school again, so I didn't quite have time like to continue doing that. And like I've learned a lot like on TikTok, and I think that's really good. It takes a lot, like it takes a lot
Yeah.
to do stuff. Definitely like just for TikTok in general, don't get caught up with the numbers because it fluctuates so much. It's
Yeah.
so weird. It's a very fickle app, but the community is pretty good. I honestly haven't gotten like a lot of for lack of better words shit for, being a little weirder or
Yeah.
being like when I started I was very much like I am a girl in gaming and now I'm genderqueer and everything. But there's not so much of that like gatekeeping type stuff on
Yeah.
TikTok unless you say something like completely wrong and then they will come for you. That
Yes.
was really weird the first time I talked about my opinions on love potions. I did get
Oh.
some like nasty comments because I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
I think that this is a date rape drug, and people did not like that.
Yeah. People.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Uh, Instagram is a lot less kind.
Yes.
Posting on Reels is a risky game, and people will be just mean for the sake of being mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hundred
So
percent.
TikTok's algorithm will navigate you to the people
Yeah.
a little bit better.
I
But
mean, TikTok is definitely a weird beast. I mean, when I started posting TikToks, it was just like funny videos that
mhm.
is just trying to do a trend or something and
Yeah.
posting videos of my kid or just random stuff. And we had that interesting moment that we talked about earlier in the podcast where my player wished one of the gods to be mortal. And I don't know like what popped into my head, but I'm like, man, I'm just gonna put this on here because I want to remember
Yeah.
this. Like I posted it for myself. I didn't think it was gonna take off or
Hmm.
get like I think it's at like 55,000 views or something
Yeah.
crazy, and it just blew up and like my phone kept going off during the day and I'm like what the hell is going on, and I opened my app and it's like follow, comment, and I'm just like what is interesting about this. I didn't know there was a D&D side to TikTok,
Yeah.
and it just took off. And then after that I think I gained like 100 something followers, and it was like the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And I got the deck of many things. I just ordered it because I wanted it for my
Hmm.
players when we play in person. I started picking up things here and there for when we play in person. And then I did my Eli Stormwalker voice for my monk. Um, and I do this thing where when they had first met me, they went to my domain because we were watching Jujutsu Kaisen, and I was like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna have his own domain," and it just spiraled out of control. And when they first met me is when I did like my quote unquote shtick where
Yeah.
I mean you've seen my videos. Every time I say it, seems like you found my domain, and like
Yeah.
every time I posted one video with this deck, and then it just took off. And like for the longest time I felt like I got caught up with the whole TikTok thing where I felt like I had to make these videos and I couldn't post anything else because everything else I was posting was doing terrible. But when I posted a deck video, the 5,000, 10,000, 11,000, but
Yep.
anything else, D&D related or not, just didn't do anything. And my wife gave me really good advice and just told me, who cares?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, nobody cares unless you're going to make a big deal out about it and care about it. So I was like, yeah, you're right. You know, I shouldn't care. If it does something, cool. If it doesn't, that's fine. So I started throwing in my unpopular opinions videos
Yep.
and um, my other random Stitch videos that I do with other of the content creators on there. And
Stitch videos are something that like I highly recommend. I had a fun time with those where that was just like my thing for a minute because like I was in like crunch time for school, but I could think of really funny questions. And like
yes,
so I'm like I can't think of any like in-depth content to like explain right now, but I
right.
can ask some really good questions to the community. And then I just get like Stitch notifications like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Um it was really crazy.
Yeah.
There is a question in chat that I
Yeah.
just saw.
Sob Sleepy says, "What's something silly, slash embarrassing you did as a DM or player when you were still learning?
Do you want to take this one first, or do you want me to?
Um, yeah, so if you want to think about your answer a little bit, because I have one
If you have
instantly.
one, yeah, do it. Do it. Do it.
Oh man, so something that's silly, embarrassing I did as a player, coming into my Gestalt campaign with my friends. For those of you who don't know what a Gestalt campaign is, it's pretty much playing Pathfinder. You can take two classes and merge them into one person, and every time you level up, both of them level up at the same time. So you can be a level 20 monk and a level 20 wizard at the same time. So it's a lot of information, and I've never played a caster ever. So I thought, hey, I can cast a spell as an action, and then I can cast a bonus action spell. And my DM was like, no. And I was like, what? That foiled my plans. I don't know what to do now. I guess I'm just gonna punch stuff as a monk. And I didn't cast spells for like 3-4 sessions, and it didn't. My DM is the he didn't really like he explained to me a little bit like, yeah, you can't cast two spells in a turn, and I like argued heavily why that is so stupid and I should be able to do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's that's probably the most embarrassing thing I did. I went in very like high strung, super confident. I was hyping myself up and hyping up my party members. Yeah, I have this crazy wombo combo spell that I'm gonna do right now. And then I did the first half, and then I was like, okay, as bonus action, I'm gonna cast this. And he was like, you can't do that. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean I can't do it? And it was the most embarrassing moment because I had to rethink my whole entire turn. I backed everyone's combat up. We spent like an hour in an encounter because I didn't know what spells did. So, my advice, just learn a little bit about combat economy before you think of a giant wombo combo.
When I first started like D&D, I was that player at the table who like never knew their spells, like cuz I played a
Yes,
druid, that was my first character,
I'm with
who
you
like did
100%.
not know their spells, and like would like I would freeze up cuz I would get really nervous as a player at first, and like not quite know, like not know which spell is best. And I'm a little bit better at it now, but like honestly, combat is still not my strong suit.
Right.
um but yeah, I definitely can relate to like the like there are so many options for spells. What do I do? What do you
Mm-hmm.
mean I can't do that?
Mm-hmm. Or that
So it's
moment when they yell at you for not having something prepared that you should have brought.
yeah.
Like, what do you mean you can't
Yeah,
pick them
I
up? You don't have a Revivify prepared? I haven't used it since I prepared it the first time.
yeah.
Oh
It's
man, that happens a lot.
it happens and it's okay. It for me, okay, do you want like cringy DM thing, or like a thing that I wish I would have done better and is embarrassing technically, or do you want like haha funny character thing that I did?
Oh man, that's tough. That's really tough. Why not both? I'm interested
Okay.
in both.
One of my lights just like completely died, so I turned on the other one.
No
Uh
worries.
uh okay, so for like oof ouch major DM mistake, I am a like I have done the trope of the trope is called DM's girlfriend, uh, where it is like that if your partner is playing in a
Oh,
game,
okay.
you let them do kind of whatever because they're
Oh,
your
okay.
partner and you
Yeah.
love them, and like they know how to push your buttons and say please. And so like it's a trope that like okay, the partner of the DM gets to a lot more leeway and a lot more favoritism. And I had a huge problem with that when I was like still in high school and like just learning how to play. My partner, they I definitely like let them have like a little bit too much freedom with what they could do, and just
Yeah.
like no good table management. It was definitely like I had a problem with table management, but like also specifically that
Right.
it would create like a weird tension and it was not good. So
Gotcha.
I ended up working around that, and like we could play together, and now like we've broken up but we still play together and it's still really nice.
Okay.
very cool. So like now we both understand the game better, but definitely like at the beginning it was like cringe. Like it was a little like it was a
Yeah.
little painful and I feel really bad. Like but it just happens. That's definitely something to like be aware of if you play with your partner is that phenomena can happen. And you don't mean for it to, it's just how it happens.
That's good to know. I mean, as you
Yeah.
know, the whole entire thing with my wife. So I can't get my wife to play D&D for the life of me.
Mhm.
And we were kind of going back and forth like, well, why do you want to play? You play The Sims, and that's exactly the same thing. You're playing a fictional character, and you're living out a different life. You can do that in Dungeons and Dragons. And she was like, you know
Just with
what?
some numbers.
Yeah. She's like, you know what? I'll play when I'm pregnant again. And I was like, okay. So you want to start planning a baby like today? And
Yeah.
it went from like haha to like are we really doing it though? Because I mean, we can like I have room where we're okay
Yeah.
to have another one, but I didn't really thought about having another one. I have two boys and I really want a girl like really bad,
Yeah.
and I'm terrified of having another boy. But we're literally gonna roll the dice here, and now when I talk about D&D or anything D&D with my wife, she's like, "Well, you're gonna have to do the same with me. You're gonna have to teach me everything." And I was like, "Yes, very true." So now with your story here, I can highly tell you that I am probably gonna have to bend more rules than I am gonna have to with anybody else because that's just my wife. Like when we played a board game and bad things were happening and she was losing items, she was like, "But can I re-roll?" I'm like, "I guess."
Yeah, it's just hard. Like my girlfriend we've played D&D a couple times. Her play style is very silly.
Okay.
And I can run silly. I
Yeah.
just have to have the heads up that like it is a silly game. So I have like kind of like I can run like complete, what like hilarious just like BS. I ran Shrek and they didn't know until
That's
like halfway through.
awesome.
So I can run silly like if I want to. It's just like uh it is definitely like a different kind of game, and so like sometimes it's a little weird. um yeah, playing with your partner is interesting. It creates an interesting table dynamic unless you know how to do it correctly. Like
Right.
it is something that you like won't expect at first, and definitely when you start playing with your wife, it might be weird at first and it's okay. Like
Yeah.
you'll either develop around it or the rest of the table will like pull you aside and be like, "Hey, stop giving your partner such like insane you can't give Prax the flying cat because they asked so nicely." Like I'm like, "Well, but I can because I'm the TM."
Yeah. Um
Yeah.
so
But
do you prefer to play or DM?
I prefer to DM by a lot.
Same.
Yeah,
Same.
I definitely prefer DM. I enjoy the whole world building experience. I like my thing is I'm very turbulent in the character archetypes I like to
Yeah.
play. So as a DM, if I feel like playing like a noble prince character, I can just make that happen. I can
Yeah.
just introduce a like flamboyant whatever. And like it's
Right.
also very like reassuring for my gender identity to be able to play a whole bunch of different,
Yeah.
archetypes and personas and stuff. So as if I'm a DM, then I can play with that and it's not like, why is Petal suddenly so emo? Like that happened one time. Petal went through like I was in like late high school, and like high school. So I
Wow.
had like this like not emo phase, not true emo, but like definitely Petal became like way angsty almost to the point of out of character for like a solid 2 months for like no reason.
Gotcha.
It just happens. So if I'm a DM, it can like be more flexible.
Okay.
So
So I feel like I'm the same way. I mean, I love DMing. I love being able to have control over everything. And if I have an idea for a character, I can just plop him in as an NPC. But
yeah,
I love combat. I love fighting things, but I love a good story. Like
yeah,
for me, a lot of DMs are like DM versus player or DM versus everyone else or I feel like I'm more story versus everything,
Yeah.
because I have a cohesive story, and I take my players' backstories and the
Yes, yes, yes,
points.
yes.
I take my players' backstories and I see what's open ended and what I can merge with someone else's backstory to kind of make it to where they have crossed paths at some point, but they don't know when. So if I can take someone from someone's backstory and make them someone who is somewhat important in someone else's, that creates good RP. And it's going to be that aha moment like, wait, you know who that is? He was this person and he did this to me. And that's what I've been doing throughout this whole entire campaign. And for the new player who just, who I helped him make a character yesterday, he was really good about writing a backstory. He wanted a dragon egg, like from Game of Thrones. So I was like, okay, well then you would need to be a worshiper of Tiamat. And well, he was like, well, who's Tiamat? And I was like, oh, she's some dragon queen who's locked away. Don't worry about it. And
Worry about it.
don't worry about it. I can't. I want to say so much more about his
No.
backstory because it's so good. But I know my players are here. But he has a really good backstory, really good, and I kind of helped him tweak it a little bit to where it makes sense to the story and like the bigger picture. That's pretty
Yeah.
much all I can say. But for my players and for myself at my table, backstories is a huge thing.
Yes. Me too. I did this thing that's a really good. I would recommend this to new DMs or to like anybody. So I made them all write down two truths and a lie about their character,
Interesting.
and then rotate left. Pass
Oh.
that piece of paper along, and those are rumors that you have heard about the other people.
Oh. Okay.
You don't know which one's the two truths and the like. You've heard. So specifically, um, Praxis wrote. Uh, I I'm a natural redhead. I have fucked every noble in the city,
Oh
and
my
I come from out
god.
of town.
Wow.
So which one is the lie?
That is a really good two truths and a lie. That's a really good one. Props to your
Yeah,
player. Wow.
yeah,
That is
and
super good.
it was great. They're not a natural redhead.
Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah,
Oh man. That's
it
definitely
was
I'm
it
gonna
was
have to do next time when I
it was
gear up for
really
next
fun.
campaign.
You also have to give them an example though to
Yeah.
like put it in perspective. Like you really have to explain to them, hey, this is things that people could have heard about you or like could have rumored about you, because if you don't put it in that context, they will write their deepest secrets on that piece of paper. Like such niche, and that's happened in another game where I did this, is like they wrote, like one person was like, I'm allergic to pickles. Blue is my favorite color. I have a 3 foot long sword, and like they always have the 3 foot long sword on them, so obviously that's one of them. Like, and so if you don't put it in like the context of like mysterious rumors about yourself, two truths and a lie, then they'll give you either like their deepest, darkest secrets or like just bullshit.
Yeah. I mean,
So
that's one thing I really like about Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is that they have that tables to where if you want to explore with your character a little bit, we have these tables you can roll on.
yep.
And that's something really cool that they brought into Tasha's that I really love. And even Ravenloft, like if you haven't had a chance to like dive through Ravenloft yet, there is some interesting things in there, especially the dark gifts. The dark gifts are awesome. I cannot wait to use them in some form or way because they all have tables and they all do great things. And I love tables.
Yes. I love
So
tables.
I know you said you like to DM more than being a player, but do you have
Mm-hmm.
your favorite character that like is your baby?
Petal. She is my sweet sweet baby. That is a very easy question. I have my girlfriend made me like a sculpt of her for Christmas.
Oh,
It's in
that's
the other room.
awesome.
I could go grab it if you want me
Yeah,
to, but
100%. Go
uh,
grab it. I have to
just
see
a sec.
it. That is amazing. I would I guys, I would die if my wife made me anything for my character. Whether even if she made me a mini from Hero Forge, oh, my heart, I would melt. Okay, I would melt. Honey, if you're watching, I would melt a lot. If you want to make me a Hero Forge mini, I love you.
Who? This is Petal. There's a
Oh
little loop on
my
top,
god, that is the cutest thing ever.
isn't it?
Oh,
I'm gonna flick
my
it up.
heart. I would melt if my wife had got me that.
It's very. I'm obsessed with it. Um, yeah. So this is Petal. This is my like main D&D character. Um, until recently, like until within like the last year, one of the people in the group only knew me as Petal, which was very funny because they would always like text me and be like, "Hey, Petal," so like this, and like at first they're just being cute, and then we were having a conversation and they only said Petal, but we were talking about things like design things, and I'm like,
Oh.
"Hey, do you actually know my first name?" The answer was
The
no,
answer
but
was
they do
no.
now. Yeah. So this is Petal, and then my first time character, her name was Azalea. Flower language is important to me if you can't tell. Uh,
That's
and
awesome.
I have a repaint of her because when I did the like, "Hi, I'm a toy designer" video for TikTok, I pulled out this, and so it's a like repainted Monster High doll that I made of her.
That's
She's very
awesome.
sweet. I don't play her anymore, but it's nice to have a
That's
little
awesome.
memento.
Oh man. I've only played probably want to say I've only been a player 3 times so far.
Hmm.
In the span of I've been playing D&D and DMing about a year now, probably a little
Hmm.
bit under a year. And I've only had 3 characters, which is my Gestalt character that I'm playing in currently right now, which is Eli Stormwalker. He's a war cleric monk. He's a war domain cleric and a Way of the Kensei monk. And I have this character that I just made, and I feel like he's my baby right now. Like
Hmm.
I want to do so many things and like print out his mini. I want to do everything for this character. His name is Tullius Rhoda the Third. He is a Goliath artificer that was raised as an orphan in a dwarven family that taught him everything he knows. But he didn't fit in, and he knew right away that he didn't fit in. He always got teased when he was little. And when he came of age, he was 5, 6 foot taller than everyone else. So he decided to run away. But before he ran away, his father stopped him because he knew this day was going to come, and he gave him a letter. This is from my DM. I don't know what the letter says yet, but he says that to open it when you need it the most. And I'm just like, okay. And I ran away and I found a teacher of magic that taught me how to embed my trinkets with magic, which is the whole artificer thing. So all my spells, anything I cast comes in the form of trinkets or vials, and I pretty much based him off Buddy the Elf.
Yeah,
Someone who didn't really
that's
fit
cute.
in and was bigger than everyone else, but meant well. So my character's kind of like a dorky, doesn't really speak too often, but throws his input every now and then. And he talks a lot like Grog from Critical Role, so
Yeah.
very short answers, but has a lot of wisdom. But I want to do so much for him. He's like my favorite character. I play him. I don't play him every often. We rotate campaigns in our group, so I get a 2 week break between my campaigns. So one Sunday will be mine. Next Sunday will be someone else's. But yeah, he's
That's how
definitely
we do. Yeah, we do every other week, Dragonless Unseen, back and forth. So
yeah.
that's how we work.
Pretty soon, we're we're trying to be a little bit more professional because now that we're have these sponsors now and we're starting to get more of them, we're like, man, okay, we really need to start recording our games or playing on Twitch. But we're like knee deep in a campaign, so if we kind of threw it on Twitch, it's kind of we're like, what happened?
Critical Role did something where they just like picked up with the arc, like they had been playing
Yeah, they were
the
gone for
campaign
a
one.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, for like a while.
Yeah.
And they did something like that.
So
It was interesting.
what we're planning on doing is, because we're getting studio lights, we're getting cameras, backdrops, so we're trying to do everything right. But we're gonna do another Gestalt campaign at level 1. So we're trying to figure out the specifics for the setting. We're trying to get someone else to come in and DM, so that way we're all playing as a group.
Yeah.
But that's kind of hard right now with COVID. You know,
Yeah.
with us, we're all vaccinated, so we all know that we're fine, but we don't know anyone else. So I think what we're in talks about doing is doing it the yawning portal style, to where it's all in the same setting, but to do certain quests, you go through different portals that can take you into different regions of the world, and whatever that region correlates to is who the DM is. So I
Pretty
feel,
cool.
yeah. So I feel like that'll be a good dynamic. So it'll give everyone a chance to play and also everyone a chance to DM.
Mhm.
And so we're trying to work it out right now. We're trying to get everything situated. We just got the name of it down, so pretty soon you'll see my video of the Layer of Geeks, cuz that's going to be our channel. I'm super excited cuz we're finally going to get to play in person. I've never played in person ever. So this
Yeah.
is this is going to be like
It's
an adventure for me.
it's good. For me, it's very different than online. Um, Mainly also because like you'll be recording, so it'll be a little bit different. Like, uh, there's a lot more shit dickery in person. Like, I'm the kind of person who will bring snacks and like
Okay.
I will like if we need a break in the middle of game. In when we're doing it online, it's like, okay, go take a break for like 5 or 10 minutes and just like go
Yeah.
walk around or whatever. But like if we're taking a break in person, I will go make mac and cheese. Like
Oh.
yeah, like I will go make popcorn for the group. I will
That's
like and then
awesome.
come back. At least that's what I did like in my dorm because we were just sitting on the floor of the dorm. Um, but or like we'll go out and like, we'll just like walk around or whatever. But it's different in person. It's good. I like it better, but you know, whichever. Happy to be playing at all.
Right? Um, so, since we're kind of nearing the end of the
Mhm.
podcast, do you have any tips for new players?
Uh, Respect your DM. And I'm saying that not only as a DM, but like as a player. Some Sometimes things aren't gonna work out, and that's okay. Like if you are playing in an online setting, like respect your DM and like respect that they are like doing this and like if they have like requests of you, either way, definitely just be nice to your DM. I've definitely had a few games where
Yeah.
like I don't know if you can tell by like the way I'm trying to navigate this question, but I have had
Yeah.
some issues with like people not respecting the DM. And like
Yeah.
the DM is doing things like leading this story and like
Right.
maybe you guys started at the same time and they don't know what it is, but like still they are taking the initiative to lead this story and like just having some empathy and like could you run this game? Like
Mm.
could you take their place? I think empathy is like a big thing. Also, as the DM, like I personally don't believe in killing characters. Like I
Okay.
will kill you if you have done something so messed up that like
Right.
like if you jump off a cliff, yeah, there's you might die. But like
Yeah.
just like a mutual respect thing is really important. Other tips for players, I would say know your spells. We talked about that a little bit
Yeah. Know
already.
your
Just
spells.
like do do your research, or if you can't do that, make something your signature that's really good. So just become
Yes.
really obsessed with fire. And then all your shit is fire and you don't have to think about it that much.
Yep.
Like just make something really like your signature. If you're a rogue and you just like stabby stab, like get a plus like an enchanted dagger and then
Yep.
that will be your shit and you will be incredibly helpful and everyone will love you for it.
Yep.
Um but other tips for new players, I would say also like just don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. I talked about that earlier, but like
Yeah.
definitely the like it's okay if you are a little silly. It's okay if you're a little bit like crazy in your character concept.
Yeah.
Because you can play with it. It's a game. Ultimately, it is a game. So have fun with it.
Yeah. I think I'm trying to think of a few tips that I haven't said before. Um, if you're a first time player and you're having trouble with encounters, um, look over your sheet. Kind of have your turn already prepped out. Maybe you have that specific thing that you're going to do every turn. Maybe you're going to hit with your short sword and then bonus action flurry of blows if you have an open hand. And, that can be your always first turn. So that way, depending on the situation, you know what you're going to do right out. So that way, you're not spending 10, 15 minutes flipping through your sheet, trying to figure out what you're going to do. Um, Another great tip that I say
Oh,
every
can I
podcast. Yes,
bounce off that
100%.
really quick? Okay,
100%.
so for Petal, we're very high level at this point. I think we're like level 14. Um, I have a spreadsheet in addition to my D&D Beyond, because I've got a lot of stuff on my D&D Beyond. Most of it is not useful.
Yep.
So for the things that are good combos, I plan that in advance and it's on a spreadsheet. You could write it on a piece of paper. I've also done it on a sticky note. But if I know that this is going to be a combat session, I will be like, okay, do not forget that you have Eldritch Smite. Do not
Yes.
do not forget that you have evasion. I
Yep.
have to write it down before every large combat. I have to
Yes.
rewrite it every time or else I will forget.
Yes. For this Gasalt campaign, for like 4 sessions, I forgot that I have Guided Strike as a cleric. So I've been missing out
Yeah.
on the 2d8, and I like kicked myself in the oh, I was so mad because now I remember it every time because I have my combo down. So every first turn I'm going to deal 70 plus damage with all of my stuff. So just kind of have a turn planned out. Another big tip is ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask your DMs questions. If they fly through a piece of lore really quickly, hey, what did you say again? Can you repeat their name? Or if your DM is nice enough and you forget where you were, like, hey, what was that town last session? And if they're, pretty nice DMs, they'll let you know. But it varies with DMs, so, just ask questions. Some DMs will go back to the first session and give you whatever information you want, some won't.
Really good tip in the chat. Best tip for new players:
Oh,
you are
yeah, you
not
are
the main
not the main
character.
character. 100%. Do
Yeah, it
not
is.
do not feel like you are the main character. You are not the center stage person. You do not have to be the first one to jump in front of everyone or cut someone off when they're talking. Let everyone get their turn in. Some people may be a little bit shy at first and start warming up, so it's definitely a good one. You are not the main character. Give everyone room to speak in conversations. That's a big one for me. I like to have everyone feel like they're included and give a chance for everyone to speak to NPCs or a big boss, or if they're interrogating someone, I like to give everyone an opportunity to speak. And I am not afraid to cut someone off and tell them, hey, they were about to say something. Can you let them finish?
That's a big one. I if I'm playing in one shots and stuff, a lot of times I will go the route of a kinder character, still outgoing, but a very kind character. Because if I'm playing with other people who are newer, I am usually the person who wrangles the party together.
Right.
If I'm playing in a one shot that was just thrown together, so like talking to the other players, also even creating tension. If you
Yes.
just decide hey, this make sure you make it clear to the player that you don't actually hate them. But if you decide that your characters are going to start a feud, that's a great way to have
Yep.
some relationship, because even a kind of bad relationship, a fun disagreeing but still together in a party relationship, it's still a relationship, and it gives really great RP opportunities. Petal has made half the group hate her 1,000 times over, and they still love her. She's still alive, she's still with the group, but there have been times where just her pixie pranks have gone terribly wrong and the party has not been happy with it, but it was great roleplay opportunity, so it
Yeah.
worked.
Somebody in the chat, Ali Popsy, said cutting people off can be a bigger problem online You got to remember to be conscious of that. 100%. I have been fortunate enough to DM a crossover campaign because I was running two campaigns at the time, and they found a portal to each other. So I had to DM on Discord for 14 people. And boy, oh boy, was it a mess because everyone wanted to talk over each other. Everyone wanted to make some type of check. And I had the worst time. It was
Yeah,
bad.
my biggest game, I believe, was 12 people. It was when I was volunteering, so you can't necessarily say no because
Right.
I was a volunteer DM for like a very long time, for like a solid year. And so just like that night was like super popular. I think like some new like something had just come out and so more people were like looking to get into D&D, but just all of the tables were like over full and it was like 12 people. It was crazy. All different age levels too, which was
Okay.
something that was really hard. I had like the youngest one was like 14 and the oldest one was like 65. Like it
Wow.
was like very big. So appealing to all of that was interesting.
Right. Okay. So I I have one more tip.
Mhm.
Do not be afraid to text your DM because I love it when my player tells me, "Hey, do you have like 5 minutes to talk really quick? I have a question. I just want to see if I'm able to do this next session." And then 3 hours later, I have this giant arc prepared because of that one little conversation. So don't be afraid to text your DM, throw out some questions. Worst thing they can tell you is no or yes and. So it's never a bad thing to shoot a text. I'm the type of DM where I definitely play with the rule of cool in mind, where if it
Yes.
doesn't break the game and I can make it work, definitely gonna run with it. And I've had some very weird things come across. Like I've had a player literally make Super Mario a character, and he is saving a princess. And I told him, "Hey man, that's a tabaxi, and that's a monk because you're gonna need to jump places." He's like, "Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'll be it. No problem." So there's a hat, a Mario hat here for whenever he comes over and wants to be Super Mario. I am well prepared because I'm gonna make him wear the hat.
That's that's adorable.
All right, so since we are nearing the end of the podcast, I
Hmm.
just want to take the time to tell you thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your day to do the podcast. And
Absolutely.
we went well over the time that I had definitely scheduled, but I love to have conversations that are just completely natural. So if it goes over and you have the time, I'm more than happy to just keep
Yeah.
going and pushing through. But for the people here that don't know who you are, if you want to tell them a little bit about yourself and where to find you.
Cool. Well, first, thank you for having me. I've had a great time. This was really cool. This is my first like live event type thing, and
Okay.
I feel like it went really well. And I'm definitely like more open to doing this kind of stuff in the future because this was great. And thank you for having me on the Storytellers Syndicate. That was great. Uh, as for me, I'm Discussions and Dragons. My name's Katie. I am on mainly TikTok, also Instagram. I have a Patreon where I do fully illustrated fifth edition supplements, released monthly. I do little shops for D&D and then also custom magic items. It's all illustrated. It's all very cute. So that's what I do over on Patreon. I am also just about to launch these little guys, little Chibi
Yes. I
Sulus.
cannot wait.
Everybody's very, very excited about them. I'm also very excited about them. I just got new supplies in today so that I can make more than one mold because I only have one mold at the moment. So it's like waiting a long time because it's resin.
Right.
So I will be hopefully making more. I'm hoping to release those in early June. So I'm very excited for that. Um, yeah, TikTok, Instagram, Patreon. I technically have a Ko-fi. It's more like a tip jar if anybody wants to. No obligation to. Um, but yeah, I just love sharing like DM tips, making homebrew content. Very heavy into the homebrew, very into uh, unique playstyle. Like I definitely have like a very like aesthetics driven. I'm very opinionated about things. Like I will tell you, how like I try and help people as much as possible. Also, like target a lot to like newer players and DMs to just try and help people and like grow the community. That's
Awesome.
kind of what I'm about.
And if you guys want to follow me on anything, all the links are in my panels. You can find me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. It's all the same handle. And if you guys want to subscribe to Discussion of Dragons Twitch channel, it's the same as her user, just without the dots. Make sure you go follow
Mm-hmm.
her. And I am highly interested in having you back on. If you ever have the time, you can let
Oh,
me
for
know.
sure. Yeah.
Saturdays are my shtick. I'm here every Saturday at 1 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern. And before we sign out, I do this with everyone. How many cards do you want to pull from the deck of many things?
Ooh. I like this. We've talked a lot about fairies today. We're doing 3.
Okay, so I'm gonna give this a shuffle on camera so nobody
Okay.
thinks this is stacked. Because I had someone comment before that it was stacked. I'm like, no, it's not stacked. I shuffle it very good. I play a ton of card games. I know how to shuffle. Okay, so first card is the Rogue. Okay, this is interesting. So an NPC of the DM's choice becomes your mortal enemy. You don't know the identity of this NPC unless it is revealed to you by a divine intervention or by the NPC, him or herself. Second card is the Sun. This is one of my favorite cards. Okay, I need to pull up my index because this doesn't get pulled a lot.
I'm just lucky like that.
Yeah,
Rule of threes, don't let me down.
right? Shameless plug if you guys want to buy your own. It comes with an index, so it tells you what the cards do because I can't remember 22 cards. So you gain 50,000 XP and a wondrous item of the DM's choice, and it appears in your hands.
Cool.
Okay, okay.
All right. Okay.
All right. So this is the last card.
Okay.
The Moon. Oh, this is my all-time favorite card. So
Wait,
you,
is it the sun? And did I just get the sun and the moon?
yeah, you got the Sun and the Moon.
That's gay as hell. Perfect. Yeah. Okay. Continue. Sorry.
So you get 1d3 uses of the Wish spell.
Wait. D3. I have D4s. I could roll it
That's
right now.
perfect. Yeah, go
Look
for
at
it.
this little guy.
That's
Ugh.
awesome.
Someone sent it to me from TikTok. It's great. I have a PO box. Feel very professional. Okay. So with the do I just re-roll if it gets a
Re-roll,
4?
yeah.
How do you roll? Okay.
You re-roll the 4 if you roll a
Some
4.
people rule it differently. Oh, I got a 4.
Oh,
Yay, I got a 4.
yeah.
What? Are you weighted? I'm putting you over there. I firmly believe in a dice jail.
Same.
That one just rolled 4 many times. So that'd be great if
Ooh.
we were playing any. I got a 1.
Oh, so you
I
get
got
one
one
wish. You cannot wish for more wishes. That's my only shtick. But hey, 3 really great cards. And because I'm
Rule
gonna
of
put
threes,
this on
baby.
because I'm gonna put this on TikTok, who's next?
Oh, who's next for Storytellers Syndicate? Or for
No,
pulling cards?
for pulling cards. That's how I always end all of my deck videos. I always ask who's next because everyone wants to pull from this deck.
Yeah.
Oh man, well it's been super great having you on, and I definitely want to have you on again for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I'm definitely willing to come back. This was great. This was really fun. Thank you for having me.
100%. So, really quickly, I just want to thank everyone who stopped by. And if you caught the end of this stream, it's going to be uploaded to my YouTube channel tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 4 p.m. Eastern Time if you're on the East Coast or near the East Coast. Also, want to give a huge shout out to Ali Popsy, Chinazo Shrimps, ESK Rana 1, Blue Druin, Mantis Candy, Hot Dog, McChicken Botham. I think I said it all. Lonely
That's my
Yoshi.
girlfriend.
Awesome. That's an awesome name. Lonely Yoshi 1, Thawny Streams, Sob Sleepy, and of course, Discussions and Dragons for following the channel. So, next week, I'm going to be interviewing Professor Junie. So, look forward to that next Saturday. Again, I just want to say thank you, and thank you all for tuning in, and I will see you all next Saturday. Have a good one.